and welcome to TV Toastmasters. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Compass to Organizational Strategies. I'm Dion, your co-host. I've done a lot of things, big rich background in agile frameworks, management, and have many years in the IT space. To learn more about me, you can visit my LinkedIn page. It's Baccus Dion, or you can visit my website at backussolutions.com. Now I'm here with my co-host Jimmy, and Jimmy, I'm really excited about our conversation tonight. You want to talk about it?
Awesome. Thank you, Dion. And I'm very excited again. Once again, we're here talking about agility. And my name is Jimmy Godard, everyone. Also, you can find more about me on LinkedIn, but I have quite some experience in organizational structure, if you will, project management, and change management. And one component we'll be talking about agility tonight has to do with dimensions of agility. Many companies, Dion, have shifted very recently or in the past few years towards what we call agility. So we hear the whole thing, everybody's going agile, which is it's not only a matter of software or product development. Agility has become this iterative, incremental ways that teams work and focus on continuous learning. So organizational leaders now have seen the value that agility provides in the software development, that they'll decide to bring it to their organization, which is kind of different from the plan-driven, deterministic thinking that many leaders used to have, or many leaders still have. So business agility is trending as one of the top priorities of business leaders. Now, our discussion tonight, Dion, is about what are the dimensions of agility. Before we get down into the weeds, we want to provide some structure or some background to many folks. And because we're talking about business, we're talking about leaders, managers, and also employees, teams, we have to understand why agility becomes such important and where we are today. Because back in the days, we used to talk about Frederick Taylor's scientific management. And following not around 9/11 timeframe, post 9/11, the military identified that the environment we were living in was different because it was very volatile. And also, you're talking about the uncertainty that the business world and also the military was facing, the complexity that follows suit, and also the ambiguity. And we take this mantra, an acronym we call VUCA, you bring it into the business world, it's no different with the industry 4.0 that is pretty much becoming so prevalent. Companies now have to deal with this whole notion of volatility, the whole notion of uncertainty. What is today is going to be gone tomorrow. And also complexity as well, not to leave out about ambiguity. What are your thoughts, Dion?
You know, I really think of it this way. I'll reflect on where was the world in the late 1800s and the early 1900s and compared where it is today. So you got to think, this is the birth of the third industrial revolution. We're getting machinery, steam power. We're beginning to develop these factory floors. But this isn't like a particular point in time where we were maybe being our best in some sense. There was a lot of hierarchy and there was a lot of different things that they were doing to purposely make it in the sense of it really benefited that entrepreneur, and it was considered at that time the mindset and the culture that really showed you were the best winner. So the structures they were building came with a mindset of dominating and being on top and that kind of an environment. And you're also launching this industrial revolution where you're starting to work with machinery. You have people with relatively low education and things of that sort. So then you time warp over 100 plus years, right? And what have we done? We've created child labor laws because we said you can't put children in mines. We have cars that went from 20 miles an hour to now do well over 200 manufactured. It's not even like that takes a special car to get that kind of stuff. Our hospitals across the board were healthier. But in the world of management and how we operate businesses, we still have this old archaic systems that go in place that were really built to benefit the most at the top. They weren't holistic. They weren't about the shared holder. I love the conversation around shared holder capitalism. They didn't work that way. Another thing that was truly different is everything just generally went slower. You wrote letters. It took time to get messages. So now you fast forward to a world where we're all walking around with hand computers and we talk and invent products and ideas at unbelievably lightning speed at a fraction of the cost. And it's a completely different world. And we're still using something that was built for a time that nothing like that we have today. And so I think that's where it really starts coming in, why business today, not IT businesses, not software businesses, but all businesses have to look about how do you rapidly seize opportunities when they present themselves, big, middle, and small, and be prepared to do that. And how do you do it in a way that allows you not to be stuck to long-term plans or long-term ideas and you follow that road because that's the plan and that's it. That worked to some level historically, right? Everybody knows there's a whole bunch of pains with it historically. Definitely is not working in this time of moving forward. The world is just too unpredictable. And all those systems are built for command and control and for predictability. And now we're in a situation where people want autonomy, they want empowerment, they want to be able to master their skills, and you want to be able to move around in a nimble way. So it's time to look at different ways of getting the work done.
Yeah, I mean, you've got some great point, and I believe that validates the whole notion of agility with the that supports the company can quickly react, quickly respond, and the way we used to do things back in the days, even when you take the industry of project management, where waterfall used to be something that's kind of very standard for people to do project management, but now you're falling into the whole agile method that is very repetitive and iterative, where you move, so you move along with the team as you're releasing different features, different capabilities part of the software. So as an executive, or as I would say, as a CEO of an organization, and if I want to bring this, because right now many people, many of my peers, I would say, is embracing the whole notion of agility. And we are talking about agility, the dimensions of agility. So what are your thoughts on what portion of the organizations that I will need to be aware, to be mindful of, on how I integrate agility in my organization?
Sure. So I'm not going to go too long on some thoughts on this one, mainly because I've heard some of your thoughts and I really want to hear them again, and I know our audience is going to want to hear it. So I will start off with, I think that business agility or organizational agility is something that is going to go across the organization, both in every dimension or direction of an organization. And so one of the models that I've seen that I liked is where it breaks down it into three dimensions, and that's strategic, operational, and portfolio. Where strategic is where you're going to take agility mindset, or I like to say lean agile mindset, because the birth of lean management out of the 70s and 80s is still very useful in the agile world, and they mix well together. So taking that mindset into strategy, so how are you going to do governance for the organization? What is the way that you're going to steer it and have a vision and keep everybody moving in that same cadence to one another? How are you going to handle budgeting? Things of that sort. So that strategic room kind of deals with that. And then operational is all about the day-to-day. How do you actually operate and achieve the things that you have set forth strategically? And then portfolio is all about product development. What's your process there? What's your ability to incrementally improve and continuously build on what you've done previously to launch new products, goods, or services, or when opportunity presents itself and you want to enter into a new product? So that model works really cool with me. I know you have a really big depth of knowledge in this piece, and we talked the other day, and you like were rattling all so fast, and I was like, oh man, this is like candy to my brain. But you hit one model that has 5 versions of it, and I think what's really cool right now about this space of agile and looking at the dimensions is it is in flux, and will probably so much stay like that because that's intentional, not to get too dogmatic. So there's always more than one way to kind of see these things, and it's about, if you get the mindset, look at the different things people are coming up with, and you'll find cool stuff.
Yeah, so now that's a great point, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I am of the firm believer to all my research and practices. I will really strongly defend the notion there is no such thing as one way of doing things, because companies are different, cultures are different, and so forth. Now, I really like the dimensions that you highlighted. You talk about the strategic component, the operations component, and also you talk about the portfolio. And I believe one of the companies that does that very well, that portrays that very well, is Uber. And if I were to really kind of compartmentalize the 3 points that you mentioned, I'm going to try to address the strategy component. And that strategy, from an organizational perspective, you can even split that into 3 groups. You have the business strategy, you have organizational strategy, and also you have information system strategy. And as even legacy companies or new upcoming companies, I would highly, highly recommend that. Those are the 3 strong steps of the stool. Legs of the stool. You must have a business strategy. So if you can think of Uber, one of the business strategy was to make travel convenient. I mean, we had taxis, we had black cars and so forth, but Uber comes to the market and said, okay, our business-driven strategy is to make travel more convenient. However, how do we do that? The organizational strategy had to depend on lower waiting time, point-to-point pickup, and no reservation required, right? So I don't have to call a taxi and wait. I can just put it on my app, go do my stuff, and I can track the driver coming to my house. So you had the business strategy. Let's make travel more convenient. You also had the organizational strategy that said lower waiting time, the point-to-point pickup. And now you have the information strategy portion, where the system arranged to send notification to the nearest driver. That takes you to a whole different level from what I mentioned earlier. We're talking about Frederick Taylor scientific management to what we call right these days algorithmic management, which is a new trend that's getting traction, whether it is in the retail industry, the restaurant industry, and other industries as well. And of course, the Uber used that. And I'm not quite sure if what's the Uber's alternative. Lyft uses as well, but I know Uber is very deep into algorithmic.
That is a perfect segue, I think, Jimmy, for us to take our break. And so when we come back, we can pick back up on algorithmic management and kind of what's going on there. I find it really interesting you're picking Uber, because they are a company that has to show and kind of flex their muscles around their agility, because their business model has taken a big hit. So those are 2 neat things to pick up on. So stay with us, and we'll be back in just a moment after this break.
I joined Toastmasters to improve my speaking, listening, communication, and leadership skills.
Toastmasters gave me
incredible confidence,
confidence,
great listening skills,
poise,
great leadership skills,
the ability to speak in public,
strength, a captive audience,
quality feedback from the more experienced Toastmasters.
Toastmasters really helped me improve my listening skills,
sales skills,
opportunities to go to different groups and widen my whole horizon.
Toastmasters has given me a more focused me, and I'm a much better listener. Toastmasters is fulfilling.
It's a great place to fail your way to success.
Wonderful way to meet people.
Networking.
Strength. It's addictive.
It's a club of self-improvement.
It's an experience, it's a ride that you won't forget, and you'll enjoy it every step of the way.
Toastmasters helped me land a kick-butt job.
I sang at one of my table topic speeches, and people liked it and applauded.
My business is doing great, and I'm very, very grateful to Toastmasters.
It's been a great experience for me.
Thank you, Toastmasters.
Thank you, Toastmasters.
Thank you, Toastmasters, for giving me so much confidence.
Thank you, Toastmasters, for everything.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Dion. So, Dion, right before we went on break, I was pretty much getting a little bit deeper in the three dimensions that you discussed when we talk about enterprise agility, dimension of agility within the business environment, where you mentioned there's the strategy component, you have the operations component, and then you have the information system. And one of the examples I provided, which I believe is so really well outlined, under the strategy components, you also have your business strategy, your organizational strategies, and also your information system strategies. And one of the examples is Uber, which is kind of very easy for all of our listeners and all of our viewers to relate. Where Uber, one of their business strategy is to really to make travel convenient. And one of the organizational strategy is really to lower the wait time that people have to wait for their transportation, and also the point-to-point pickup. Now, part of their information system strategies has to do with the algorithmic management software that pretty much assign the closest driver to me to come and pick me up. And they also do the same thing when it comes to payment, right? To make payment easier, Uber, you don't have to pay cash. You don't have even to pay the driver. You pay somebody directly. So their information system strategies also deal with Apple Pay and also all the other vendors that they partner with, so that I can pay. The other two components I wanted to highlight as well have to do with the culture of the organization and also the people of in the organizations. As someone who does so many change management, and one thing that I've learned has been people do not mind change per se. They're really against being changed. They're really resistant, if I can use that word. They resist being changed. But if change in itself, you will find out most people do not mind that. The other component has to do with the culture of the organization. Some organizations have developed a culture that I'm sure you have a lot of examples in that realm, Dion, where they're not as friendly to innovations as other organizations. Some of those legacy companies, I can think thousands of them.
Yeah, I think often what gets lost in all conversations when it comes to organizations, we speak of it as in, hey, that entity, right? Google. But Google is a legal structure for us to organize ourselves into a particular type of entity. But who you are the people, and the people and the culture make up that organization. And if you don't have the right people and the right culture that are willing to adopt lean agile thinking, or another way to say that in more layman's terms, if they don't want to look at how they operate and be like relentless around removing waste and not doing things that are low value for their efforts, if they want to be aggressive about that and they want to be like really dedicated and serious about going out there and going, how can I plan enough that I can move our efforts and our strategies forward, but stay nimble enough that when circumstances change or when nothing changes and your estimates and your plans just don't work. Because let's not forget, that is also a very common thing. Humans are horrible at estimating. Our plans never work out as planned. And you want to be like seriously committed to, how do I live with that as a norm in a world that's to be accelerated because there's more volatility, it's more unpredictable, and how do I do that and thrive in it and be able to grab those opportunities? If you don't have the people that are willing to think that way, because it's a double-edged sword. In some way, this is more freedom, more fun. It's a more cool way to do things. It's less authoritarian here. But there's also a bigger ask for you to perform more. I mean, you can't just kind of slide under the radar. Work is more transparent. You have to be dedicated, to getting things and being done and being about productivity, not how many hours did you clock in. So you need the type of people and the culture that are going to support that. And I think that's a good segue, both as we come into, we've been talking about the strategy and you talked about the three components just in the strategy piece of the dimension, but going into the operations, right? So we talked about that being a part of business agility. And from that operational view, I think you really start looking at how do you have small empowered teams. And some people may have heard this. Some people may be familiar with agile teams and small and more empowered teams. But something that may be helpful for those that have heard about it and those that have not, is thinking about what frameworks are we talking about. This is an area that's a little more familiar that people have heard. So when you hear things like scaled agile framework, it's got the components in it to explain how to operationalize an agile environment, where other frameworks such as Strategizer and Holacracy and B certification, they're more in that realm of strategy. Those frameworks are helpful there. In this world of operational world, you can look at the scaled agile framework, also known as SAFE. If you're bigger, you may be a smaller team, so you want to look at stuff like LESS, which is still a scaled from the Scrum format, but it's made for a more mid-sized company, or Scrum. So I think talking about the people and the culture and then how they do things is a critical part to the 3 dimensions of Agile.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I'm sure, Dion, we have so much more that we can get into depth to really talk about the various dimensions of Agile. The way I like to consider an Agile enterprise, if I were to summarize our sessions today, will be enterprise are really engaged, where the focus is really providing customer value. And if you're an enterprise that's really focusing on getting customer value, on improving the way you operate, and also using, I would say, as Dion mentioned, those framework we talk about, so that you can bring in change and manage this change in a sustainable manner. And with that concept, I believe you will set your organization for success to embrace the dimensions of agility that we discussed tonight, where we have the business strategy, you have business operations, and also you have the portfolio, which is pretty much the products what you're going to deliver to your customers.
Yeah. So, we have a couple minutes left, so before we talk off, you said something there I want to jump onto, because we didn't really touch much on that portfolio piece, and you talked about the customer centric. You know, there are people out there right now that are also looking at businesses through a lens of micro enterprises, where it's really a bunch of smaller enterprises that function fully, and so each different business unit is a customer of each other, right? And then you have people talking about shareholder capitalism, a place where there's more equality in the workplace and really a different vibe of how we go about business. It's not just about consumerism, and it's not about getting to a zero-sum game, right? They're purposely looking at non-zero sum, and how does all the shareholders, meaning the people affected in the environment, in the communities, how do they all benefit out of the products that you're creating? And all that thinking goes into that portfolio piece of being agile. And so there, some frameworks I think are really cool are the Lean Startup. You know, they have a concept called the minimum viable product, MVP. That it gets tossed around probably more than it should. If you dive into it, you can see how to simplify it. And a lot of times people use it just as a scoping mechanism. And I go, you're not really getting the lean agile mindset. What you're doing is you're taking old habits and you're just calling them new buzzwords. But if you get it right, the Lean Startup, in combination with some of the frameworks I said earlier, SAFE, LESS, and Scrum, because those really have both a foot in product development and a foot in operations. But the Lean Startup is probably one of the leading agile thinkings around how do you continuously innovate your services and goods.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said, Dion. Everyone, thank you so much again for joining us on another episode of our sessions, Compass of Organizational Strategies. We're always happy to have you as viewers. Always give us some feedback, and we will be delighted to address those in future episodes. And Dion, last word?
Yeah, just want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope you're finding these conversations entertaining. Giving us feedback is helpful, or if we're touching on certain topics that ring a bell or resonate with you, or there's certain topics or a different a matter of detail you want us to give at certain areas, provide us that feedback. You can provide it through us by communicating us through LinkedIn. We both have profiles. Mine's at Baccus Dion. You can also go to BaccusSolutions.com and communicate with me there and leave comments about how we're doing on the show. Just leave it in there as this is about organizational compass to organizational strategies. Sorry about that. And so I look forward to hearing from you. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you, everyone.